Golden years go. Golden years go. Golden years go. Don't let me hear you say life's taking you nowhere. Angel.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up. This is Dr. Ed Park from Recharge Biomedical, and we'll be talking about skin health today. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to discuss skin health and talk about some really interesting and very common features of skin aging that can be dangerous and unpleasant and not good to look at. And that'll be towards the end, and we have a live guest as well, Deb Baker, who has serendipitously sent me some pictures of her that she was taking for her records, and they'll be fun to look at, the before and after. So what we see here in the background of the intro slide is a guy aging, and now they have these software programs, I guess from forensic science, that can age someone forward and backwards. They do that with the child abduction cases. The goals of the podcast would be to show that aging of the skin, just like every other disease and aged organ, is just DNA damage in the stem cells. We'll discuss some anecdotes of skin improvement. We'll interview Deb, and we'll take live questions at the end and do our free T65 raffle. So what is skin? Skin is what covers us. It's a multifunctional organ. They say it's the heaviest organ in the body. So you have protection, you have sensation, heat regulation, both by constricting and dilating the vessels for heat exchange, as well as raising and lowering the hairs for a little micro layer of insulation. It also stores water and fat in the subcutaneous layer, and it provides kind of an oily resistance to water and all the damage that would happen from the elements. Below the epidermis is the dermis. So in this picture to the right, the epidermis is the thing that's being peeled up, and those are like the little foot soldiers or trench soldiers of the skin, and they're being generated and pushing their way to the surface as they're being sloughed. Below the epidermis is the dermis, and that's the pink and yellow stuff where the loose tissue, the connective tissue, the hyaluronic acid, all these organs are in there. And so this would be where the nerve endings, glands, and hair originate as well. I bring up Marvin the Martian because we need to understand where agency comes up. We're all confused because we blame things like aging and oxidation and UV. Let's clarify and make precise what we're talking about. So when Marvin looks down, he doesn't know if the bullets are important, is the war or the battlefields important, are the ideologies important, nation states. But in actuality, where the action is the soldiers, right? So you got these old doughboys, and this would be the aging skin. And then on the other hand, you have Navy SEALs. These are young soldiers. This would be a kid's skin cells. This would be an older person's skin cells. So we fixate on things like vitamin C, which are important, ultraviolet rays, hydration, antioxidants. But these are just the tools, the substrates, the things that the soldiers use to be good, to be healthy, etc. Whereas some people focus on the big things like, our mandate to age, loss of elasticity, even cancer. These things are just emergent properties. They're things that we perceive, but really the damage and the disease and the health is encoded in and carried by the soldiers. So where did we originate? 164,000 years ago, the theory that was brought up in one of the podcasts earlier, and I did some research, and it's a pretty good theory, is that our species was born 164,000 years ago in South Africa. And we huddled in this cave, and we became more hairless in order to swim, and we became upright in order to wade out and get some mussels and shellfish. And we got symbolic language by doing little shows on the wall there. So right about now, you should be getting a deep genetic, cultural resonance to this image. This is where our ancestors originated. And here's an excavation of a similar, or if not the same, cave. And so this is where our species originated. And it's because all of Africa was arid. There was really only a little tip for the survivor population to live and become human. And although there were hominids elsewhere, our particular Homo sapiens sapiens was probably a bottleneck phenomenon here. And we know that because the differences between all people is much less than even neighboring tribes of gorillas. Why do we have light and dark people? It's pretty simple. The theory is a good one, unlike some anthropological theories, and it basically says that as you get further north or south in the latitudes, um, up to Scandinavia, etc., the sunlight comes in at an angle and it has to go through more air particles. Less sunlight gets through. So because we need vitamin D to supply control to our immunity and our bone homeostasis and other things, you can't have as much protection, which is the melanin in the skin. And so if you are getting light directly from overhead, on the other hand, in the equatorial regions, then you're going to get burnt and get too much vitamin D. So it was really a loss of the pigment, I guess, as people migrate away from Africa. People used to think that all cells were immortal. And if all cells are immortal and they're all dividing, then we become giant blobs within hours, and we'd starve to death. So there is a thing called P53, which recognizes the damage to chromosomes from aging, and it will kill that cell, and that's a prime mission of the cell. So what is replicated senescence? Well, it's like a firecracker fuse burning. So literally at the ends of every chromosome, there are these caps, which as the cells divide into daughters and then daughters of daughters, the caps have to shorten. It's a mechanical problem with copying to the very tip. So as that happens, we have an uncapping, and the uncapping is recognized as damage, as if someone were to come in with a knife and cut this. So the diligent cell repair mechanisms, or the DNA damage repair mechanism, will anneal or heal or splice two ends together, like that. And that would be kind of similar to two trapeze artists. So the next time that the cell will divide into two daughters, all the chromosomes are lined up by their centromeres, and they're pulled apart. Now, if the hands are really bound, they could tear apart at the shoulders, the waist, or two could go with one side, and that's what's happened here. Both the male and female, if you will, mom and dad's chromosome have gone to one side in this daughter, and presumably the other daughter got one. This one got three. So as we see, when we get the double chromosomes, we get strange recombinations and crossovers. So here the yellow has crossed over to the blue. So a tip of chromosome 1 is now on 4. And as these continue to divide and divide, the aberrations become infinitely complex. But luckily, the cell knows this, and the cell will kill itself, like so. Like Peter Graves and or Mr. Phelps, the tape would always self-destruct when it got to the end. Same with the telomeres. As the telomeres erode, cells divide 10 times, 20, 30, 40, 50. Somewhere around here is the Hayflick limit, and the cell becomes, the descendants become non-viable as the number of aneuploid or abnormal chromosomes fractions go up. And this is the apoptosis mechanism. So when you're pulling and you're tugging, before the cell can divide into two daughters, it says, hey, let's see if the tethers are right. And if they're not right, they'll say, whoa, we're not going to divide. And then it could even step in and do a P53 thing where it pokes holes in the mitochondria. It leaks this battery acid, and the cell dissolves itself from the inside. So I believe there's one simple explanation for most illness, and you've just figured it out, or you've just shared it with me. It's that the chromosomes shorten. That's what we call replicative senescence. And then on the enzyme level, the DNA damage response kicks in, and it connects chromosomes where they shouldn't be connected. On the apoptosis level, the cell says, whoa, we're damaged. We got to die. So like this harakiri or seppuku, the cell says, we're going to die. If the cells are damaged, hang on and don't die. If they get stem cell damage, or as the viable descendants accumulate, we get this situation where in the beta cells we have depleted or damaged stem cells, and all the diabetes ensues. In the arteries would be high blood pressure and atherosclerosis, in the brain, Alzheimer's. So the same process is in every organ, every cell, because the system is elegant and it's simple, and it is the same throughout. So every organ is regenerated from within by healthy stem cells. If the stem cells are damaged and not able to apoptose, then we get wrinkles, arthritis, osteoporosis. So here's a study from 2010 showing that just what we talked about with the trapeze artist, that telomere centromere-driven genomic instability contributes to bad things, melanoma. So what they found was that telomere length abnormalities seem to be an early genetic alteration and is a multi-step process of malignant transformation. So you get this aggregation, bridge, breakdown, end-to-end fusion, and then we get issues. Again, that would be these damaged, pulled apart, and now made into confetti and abnormal mutation type of karyotypes. Okay, everyone talks about, well, people start to talk about Leonard Hayflick. This is the Hayflick limit. And he was given recognition, I'm not sure a Nobel, but definitely recognition for his disproving of this earlier man, Alexis Carrel. So what we see here is Alexis Carrel and Charles Lindbergh, and they got involved with some immortality pursuits, invented the perfusion machine, a lot of interesting cardiovascular inventions. And this gentleman in the 1910s found a chicken embryo heart and kept it alive for 20 years, well past the lifetime of a chicken. So was born the concept of cell immortality. 40 years later, Leonard Hayflick came and said, whoa, Alexis, I think you're wrong. I think that I took some embryonic skin cells, and look what happened. Now, it turns out they're both right. They didn't know why they were both right, or they were both wrong, but here's the answer, and it comes from the game Stratego. So we see here on the left the most powerful Marshall piece, Field Marshal. As we go down, they're more specialized, so we get these scouts that can only do one thing. So this is the same with cell differentiation. As we go to more specialization, we have limited reproduction, and the gene expression in the epigenetics, or the differentiation, is committed. As we get more committed, more differentiation, we lose stemness, which is the ability to be all things to all future lineages, and the telomerase activity also decreases. So Mr. or Professor or Doctor or whatever, Herr or Monsieur Carrel, he put a very early chicken heart and was able to keep it alive. Whereas even within the fetus, even though you think it's a young organism, the fetal skin cells that he put maybe were more differentiated, hence they died off. So certainly the further back in terms of primitive stemness you go, the higher and more efficient and really immortal those cells are. So what is the key to immortality for cells? It would be telomerase. And so telomerase is described by this engine that's pumping out like a ticker tape new telomere lengths. So only stem cells really. Now let's talk about this. Stem cells are more to this side. Differentiated cells are more to this side. So there is a gradient of stemness, but in general, the body has devised a way to divide the labor so that the stem cells are the queen bees and they're immortal. So the way they do this is by lengthening their tips. And the tips are lengthened not preferentially for the shortest one. So you don't pour the whiskey into this one equally with these. You pour it into the short glasses. And there are mechanisms for not overspilling as well. In 2010, they looked at the telomerase activity or expression in normal, aged, and photo-aged skin. And what they concluded was that it showed higher telomerase expression than the young skin. The photo-age was particularly worse than both young and old. So what's going on there? They conclude that the telomeres, rather than the telomerase, are involved with cellular senescence. Okay, so they're putting the chicken before the egg, so to speak. And what they're saying is genetic damage in xeroderma pigmentosum, which is a premature aging syndrome, is the decisive factor. So it's not the UV per se, it's the DNA damage. Again, that's what we know. It's the DNA damage. And so this speaks to a problem in my theory or dogma, and that is I say that telomerase is active in cancer because the cells are originally stem cells gone awry, like Clark Kent from Krypton. But there could be a factor as well, and we see this in late stage breast cancers, for example. You get a lot of activation of the telomerase. So it could be that part of the individual life of a damaged stem cell, aka cancer stem cell, is that it upregulates telomerase expression in an attempt to try and lengthen its telomeres. But if the damage has already been hard-coded, like this confetti, lengthening the telomere is not going to put 3 back in an ancestor or, find a 20. The damage is done. There's no master template in every cell in which to reconstitute, like your Microsoft original boot up disks. No, this system is meant to self-destruct. So I think that what they're saying is that when you're photoaged or mutated, there is a step where the cell is trying to pump out telomerase. And again, that's why we see in some of the late stage cancers that you see a median or average length is high because these cells are trying to repair, but it's a lost cause. So what is a stem cell? A stem cell is like a queen bee that lives years. She will clone herself into drones, and they'll live months. This model is recapitulated in all our organs. So we really need to keep good copies of mom or queen, and so she has good error correction. She has infinite, pretty much, telomerase activity, and the drones die off. And that's the reason we don't become blobs, because there's very few queens and there's a lot of drones, and the drones, even if they're dividing, which they do, their descendants and descendants and descendants eventually, when they hit the Hayflick limit, will peter out. So any acquired mutations in these guys doesn't matter. So organs are really just collections of hives, or what we call niches. So the key to rejuvenation is when the queen is damaged and she knows she's damaged, she'll kill herself with p53. If she doesn't know she's damaged, she'll pump out, she might try and poke holes in her mitochondria and oxidize herself, or she might just not reproduce very well, creating like a kind of a dead zone there. Or she may lengthen, recombine, continue to divide, and mutate into, God forbid, a cancer. There are undifferentiated stem cells. So here's a visualization of what niches are. So say this is a development of lots. Queen A, Queen B, C, D. The liver doesn't turn all cancers at once. It's not a field phenomenon. Cancer maybe in lot C will develop. This might be a totally healthy, pristine. This might be slightly damaged from drinking. This might be damaged from virus. And if we can get in and kill the queen in lot C, then all her little drones will die off, and eventually, sooner rather than later, a new queen will come in from close by and become the healthier, younger version. And how do we know that this happens? These mesenchymal stem cells are like queen bees in amber, or they're frozen in the freezer. So when you're very young, some of these cells are arrested in development and in complete stasis. They don't do anything. They don't divide. They don't metabolize. They're frozen. And then when something happens where you need a replacement queen, they come out and they do their job. Werner syndrome is a type of accelerated aging, and in 2011, they looked at the telomere loss in real Werner syndrome people, and they concluded that the telomere length was shorter than in controls. Okay, not a big surprise. But they also concluded, which was interesting, the adjacent muscle also showed significantly shorter length than controls. Why? How could that be? If we have these being, let's say, skin cells in Werner syndrome, but like, say, around here is the strip mall, okay, and those are like the Subway and the Starbucks and whatever. What they're saying is not only were these old, but the ones close by were old too, like the muscle cells, which come from a different lineage. So if the replacement stem cells, these mesenchymal stem cells, came from far, far away, you wouldn't see that. I don't know if their science is good or their conclusion is right, but what they're saying is that there's probably not some kind of distant itinerant stem cell, but the most recent precursor, mesenchymal, may have originated from locally. They recruit from not from within, but close by. It doesn't come from the bone marrow way across the hip. It comes from the cartilage cells close by. It's an interesting kind of thought. I don't know how valid it is. So if you look at this gentleman or little kid, he's probably 10, and you wouldn't say this is a normal kid. But if you look at an older person, you would say, well, that's normal. But at this point, I've completely rejected that idea. I think that DNA damage accounts for what we describe as aging, and it's shown that in accelerated aging syndromes, it's all DNA damage. So here, that was XP xeroderma pigmentosum, trichothiodystrophy, Cockayne syndrome. Basically, DNA transcription is a problem, so you get errors. DNA repair being a problem, you get this type of aging. When the helicase or the winding and unwinding hormone is messed up, you get these three syndromes. And then you get Hutchinson-Gilford when the scaffolding for the DNA, instead of being a nice round egg, it's all messed up and scalped, so you can't even sort the chromosomes properly. The classic model for for premature aging is disc keratosis congenita. And disc is bad, keratosis is skin, hair, nails, bone. So the keratin-containing structures are messed up. And so even in a young kid, 10 years old, if the telomerase is not active, we get the graying of the hair, loss of hair, osteoporosis, nail atrophy. And so DNA repair is basically messed up. And in this case, telomerase, or the lengthening of the telomeres and stem cells, is messed up. So what causes disc keratosis congenita? Well, it turns out there's only one gene copy per stem cell. One of them's bad. So how could I make an analogy here? You got two kidneys. If one goes bad, you got the other one. Well, these cells are all born with only one good copy. So when the other one goes away, you got big issues. So a single gene dose, if you will, of telomerase makes you live until about 11 or 12. Two will make you live to about 80 these days. But what if you had highly efficient or active copies, or what if you could activate it with a telomerase activator? The maximum lifespan would be unknown. Getting to the more fun part of the presentation, this person is Shelley, and she's talking about her problem with the subcutaneous structures, the skin, the coagulation, the texture, and let's listen to what she says about getting cuts and bruises.
Well, very important to me. I used to bruise, my skin used to bruise so easily. I mean, I just bump it like that and it would be bruised. And I have far less bruising now. And I used to have open cut almost always. I had Band-Aids in every room in the house, in my car, in every purse. I haven't had to put a Band-Aid on now for an open cut or wound for a long time. I'm so happy about that because that's a pain. Is to go around. Gee, I don't want to. I'd be sure not want to bump myself because I'll start bleeding like crazy.
Here's her skin. At baseline, it was 13.6, a very low elasticity. So when you come on as a patient of ours, we offer complimentary testing of your skin elasticity. So there's a little device that will pull on your skin imperceptibly and determine how well it bounces back. In October 29th, she had an average of 13.6 from 3 measurements. Even a month later, it had jumped incredibly, like 60%, 70% or something, to 20, and then it eased back down to 17.3 at 6 months, although she's feeling much better in many other respects, including her nervous system, her sleep, her muscle, etc. So we don't like to just rely on subjective indices like sleep and dream and other people's opinion of you, which is all there, but it's nice to get numbers. So we go with numbers: skin elasticity, arterial compliance and softness, lung capacity, cognitive flexibility and memory. All these things degenerate predictably with time and appear to be improving with telomerase activation in our patients. If you are also able to afford it, we can measure the telomere damage and length, and probably most predictive of your aging and morbidity or sickness and longevity would be the immune health. And we can measure how much immune health you have left, and that appears to be regenerating with telomerase activation. Here is a gentleman. This is not the actual gentleman, but he's of South Asian descent. He's got an English accent, but he's talking about the fact that his skin is lightening, and that other people do recognize that he looks much younger. And he was incredibly skeptical when he first started out. So again, unless I'm a magical Jedi warrior, which I could be, I'm basically convincing people to manifest physical things that they don't even believe will happen. So there might be something more to this. Let's hear what he has to say.
It's definitely 100% it's getting, I feel obviously it's getting lighter. To me, it's getting cleaner. And the skin's getting clearer. And obviously it feels like, that where I used to have dark pigmentation on my skin, it's just becoming lighter. So it's made a lot of difference. But I also noticed people see me after 5-6 months. They've noticed me. I do look a lot younger.
Really?
A few people say that, and they definitely people ask me 5-6 months. Say your skin is looking a lot more cleaner.
Really?
I have like a spots in my skin on my back and my chest.
So it's getting better?
That thing, yeah, that's getting lighter. Is the dark spots.
Oh, so is the skin lightening at all?
Yeah, skin also lightening too.
Oh, good.
But like I have a spot, is like a dark spot is growing, but it's not growing anymore.
Oh, good. Good for you.
It's coming back to the original.
So let's look at some research on this subject. In 2000, in this Journal of Human Pathology, they looked at telomerase activation in melanocytic proliferations. That just means melanocytes. They found that in the benign moles, dark spots, that the telomerase activity was low, 3.5 on their scale. When you talked about dysplastic or pre-malignant moles, it was higher at 13. Malignant melanoma is even higher, and metastasis, very, very high, 121. So what they're saying is that the more aggressive the dysfunction of the melanocyte, the more telomerase activation they had. So again, that could be more stemness. It could be that there was damage, or it could be dedifferentiation, which is the popular current theory that a scout becomes damaged and becomes more primitive or powerful. That model doesn't sit as well as me, because it's like taking a broken up jalopy of Frankenstein parts and then making a super Ferrari. It's more likely that there's a already superhero Clark Kent or Lex Luthor, and then they're messed up. But it's probably possible to do both. Here's a gentleman who I couldn't mute at the beginning, so maybe that's something he's doing with his Jedi powers. But he used to go every 3 months for these freezings of his actinic keratoses and sometimes basal cell epithelioma. So a fair gentleman, he had damage to the genetics of these spots all over his face, and this is a very common phenomenon in septuagenarians. So the doc would freeze a few of these, and it was a pretty reliable source of clinical billing.
I am susceptible to basal cell carcinoma.
Yes, you said that they always freeze every few months.
Yeah.
Did you go in again since we last saw you?
Yeah, I told you about the last one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a record of it.
Any new ones
but
popping up?
The time before last, he found nothing
Nothing,
to
right.
spray with liquid nitrogen at all. And one thing of possible interest to you is that I got a number of spots of seborrheic keratosis,
Yeah.
which I've never had on my face before at all.
Okay.
And I had no actinic keratosis, which is the precursor to basal cell carcinoma, this time or the last time.
So you're getting new seborrheic keratoses, but no actinic keratoses.
Yeah,
So we could probably
right.
surmise that that pre-malignant process is not ongoing on your face.
You could
we're coming to the end here. We have 58-year-old Deb Baker, and for some reason, she emailed me serendipitously. I was already planning to do a skin webinar on the follow-up of the hair webinar, and so she said, hey, check out all these pictures. I'm really changing. So let's talk to her in a moment. By the way, I'm not going to do a show on nails, but nails are basically the same as skin and hair, and they're keratin and collagen, and basically they seem to always get better as well while you're taking TA. So they grow faster, they're stronger, and the ridges eventually can come out as well. With, of course, nail being one of the most predictable signs of aging. The peak growth is at 25, and that's when all the bad stuff happens. After 25, it's all downhill. And so let's look here. She wrote to me and said, before TA, I had age spots on my hands, and the veins in the back of my hands looked like giant night crawlers. I assume she means like these green-blue veins. And this is a very common report that we get if people are paying attention, that their brown spots are actinic keratoses and freckles, solar lentigines, seborrheic keratosis even, those look kind of warty, heaping on lesions. They can all just kind of fall off strangely. Not strangely, I think, because of the apoptosis of the stem cells, but that, again, is theoretical at this point. This one is not actually Deb's hand, but something similar, I think, to what she was describing. Here's the lovely Deborah Baker, and why don't we go ahead and get her on. Hi, Debbie. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Park.
Oh, lovely. Great. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Great. So did you get a chance to listen to the podcast?
I did. I really enjoy your podcasts. They're very informative.
Thank you. So tell me what we're looking at here. You seem to be pulling on yourself.
Yes, I had a lot of loose skin on my face and neck in particular, but also my arms, excuse me, and my hands. I was really having a lot of just all over my body, a lot of loose skin, and of course I don't like that. I didn't really expect for TA65 to do anything for me for that. I was taking TA65 because I really want to make it to the singularity. That I've already told you that I'm wanting to make it to age 150 or beyond. And, you know, this skin problem, if you're going to live a long time, is going to be, you know, with you for a long time. And so when I started getting these positive effects with TA65 with my skin, I had to let you know because it's just so remarkable. It's almost unbelievable. And you can see here that I'm pulling on my skin, and before I was just showing how far out I could pull it, and I didn't really expect anything to happen. In one of your podcasts, you suggest that we take before pictures, and so I did that. And this is just with my cell phone. I didn't come in and do any of your tests or anything. But now I've been on it for 3 months, and most of that time I was just taking 1 pill a day. And I'm just getting these remarkable results. So I sent this. I think you can see it from the cell phone that there's been quite an improvement. And if you look at this before picture, it not only shows the skin laxity, but I went to a cosmetic surgeon and got a consultation, and he said that I need a face, neck, eye, and brow lift. And you can really see it here, the way that the skin is sagging around my eyes and all of that. So I just wanted to share that with you, that I'm getting these really remarkable results.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, overall, of course, you look happy, but the tone, the complexion is a little more even. Maybe it's the lighting. How do you feel about your pore size and your fine lines?
Well, all of that's improved, I believe. I sit in the same place. The lighting should have been about the same. Yeah, I get up every day, I look in the mirror, and I can see a small, subtle improvement in my skin, and it's continuing even today. So at 2 months, you felt like it was working, so you went up on the dose. That's interesting. Yes,
so what did
I did.
you do in April?
Well, in April, I just decided that, you know, I need to find out what this stuff can do for me, you know. I was getting such remarkable results with one pill a day. I wanted to see how much it could do, and so when you feel great and you're looking a lot better, you think, well, it's not hurting me for sure. It's helping me a lot, and I just want to see where it can go.
Yeah, it's funny. You look on this next slide. You're looking at, like, the skin is quite thin. The subcutaneous, there's not a lot of tension and fat. Like, you can pull it really easy. I could see why they wanted to do a chin tuck maybe. But in the second one, it looks a little juicier, even though it's a different angle. Like, it's more plump.
Yes, and in person you can really tell the difference. I can see the difference myself very clearly. So
cool.
Much more youthful looking, I think.
Good. Well, here's the before and after. You're smiling here, and you're smiling here. But, it's hard to compare, but you do look a little bit younger there. Does anybody comment to you that you might look a little younger?
Yes, I've had a number of people ask me, what I'm doing. And, I try to talk about PA65, but the results are so incredible. If you really tell them what's going on, they look at you like you're crazy. Because
I know. I've been doing that for 5 years. People just
I know
wipe the spit off my face. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I mean, not they're not spitting on me. They're just going plow. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and nothing else can really give you these results. I'm really familiar with what's out there. If it's non-invasive, if it's not surgical, I've probably tried it. For my skin, I'm familiar with all the lasers and the radio frequency treatments and all of that. And there's nothing out there that can really tighten, make your skin all over your body look tighter. Basically, that's what's
because
going
it's really it's fixing the stem cells. I mean, when I was transitioning my practice from OB/GYN and cosmetic stuff and laser, people would say, "Oh, do some Botox, do some laser." I'd be like, to tell you the truth, don't waste your money. You'd be better off just taking this. And even I think in the long term,
I love my spa treatments, and I probably will continue doing some of that. I didn't during this 3 months, but I probably will because they do certain things. If you know what they do and you know what the result's going to be, then you can go do that and spend the money for it if you want to. But nothing does what TA65 does. And so that's what I wanted to get across here. It's really very remarkable. It's almost unbelievable to me what's happened. So
it is literally unbelievable. I agree. But the proof in the pudding is in the eating, right? So you got to just try it. And I'm sure you noticed it very quickly, did you not?
Day 3, I started noticing my hands. I looked down at I love your before picture of my hand because it's exactly what my hand looked before. Only my veins are probably.
Is that kind of like?
That's very close to my hand. But the before picture would have even larger veins than that in my hand. I had a really big problem with that. I even got a consultation to see what they could do to, make it look better. And it's fillers and things that cost a lot of money and don't last very long, and so I opted not to do that. And so when I looked down on day 3 of taking TA65 and saw my hands looking basically the same way that they do now in the after picture, I knew that TA65 was a very special supplement and was very impressed with it.
And are you being paid to endorse this?
Oh gosh, no, no.
You're paying me, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah,
I know it sounds a little incredible. It's sounding like an infomercial. That's why I have to throw that out there.
Sorry about that, but
I'm
such a big believer in it, and so I wanted to help out any way that I can. I really admire all you doctors that are kind of putting, your reputations out there on this, because I know it must be difficult for you, and I just want to support what you're doing, really.
Oh, thank you. It's not that hard. Like, someone asked me, do you get a lot of resistance? And I said, no, because they don't even take it seriously, like to even make fun of it. So that they really don't get any kind of blowback because they just automatically judge it to be ridiculous. So it's actually quite under the radar right now.
It is. And
thanks, Deb.
Yeah.
Can you hang on and answer questions? Oh, thank you. Hang on, and let's see if anybody wants to ask you a question. If anybody who's called in wants to ask a question of Deborah or me, please let me know. I see Bernie has raised a flag. Bernie Kitts Joyce asks in the type-in box, has anyone noticed healthier gums after taking TA65? Yes, I have had people say that. I'm not a dentist by training, but just people have kind of thrown that in, that their gums are healthier with regard to gingivitis, and that recovery from dental issues is better. Don Wright asks, fungus? Nail fungus, yes. I have seen improvement in that regard. Witness the back pain webinar when Bonnie, Rocky's wife, said that she had a fungus going on many years and it just kind of cleared. And that stands to reason when you improve cellular immunity that the fungus would be easier to clear. What is the mechanism of cell apoptosis? For example, is it peroxide, mitochondrial oxidation, or something else? Dwayne asks. Yeah, that's a little above my pay grade. I think it just pokes holes in the mitochondria. There are these different pathways that it does that. But because there's a bunch of oxidative species in here, through the NOXA and PUMA pathways, it'll poke holes in these battery acid containers, and they'll become a bunch of little hand grenades from within. Cliff, to everyone, I have problems swallowing capsules. Can I remove the contents from the capsules and mix it with something to make it easier for me to take? Yes, absolutely. It's pretty tasteless and odorless. It does kind of stick and taste bad if it explodes in your nasal passages, but it's certainly not caustic. But to answer your question, it's not really very soluble in water. So I would sprinkle it on ice cream or maybe make a smoothie, but definitely there needs to be some kind of fatty food, somewhere in the range of a golf ball size or racquetball size snack, and then mix it in some kind of drink that's more palatable to you.
I have a question.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Go for it.
Well, I was wondering if anybody has tested using TA65 topically. Has that been looked at all by any of the doctors involved in this?
Yes. Yeah, it's not that well absorbed, and there is the cosmeceutical topical application, but that would be something that is still being developed. But it's so expensive that I don't think it's a good use of it, seeing as it doesn't penetrate well, and you want it really going into all your cells, not just your skin cells.
True.
It's just like, it's like anything can be absorbed topically to an extent, but you really want it going to your heart, your liver, and your brain too, and so the absorption is difficult through the barrier.
Okay,
Good
thank
question,
you.
Though. Okay, super duper. All right, everybody, this is Dr. Ed Park from Recharge Biomedical, finishing a webinar on skin health. Have a great day, and take care. Bye-bye.